success. But of course, he has also claimed that the UK will make a success of Brexit, and that is now his big challenge. Not just communicating today why the deal he has reached is a positive one to his country, but also perhaps trying to set out how he can use our new relationship with the EU and our new relationship with other countries across the world to drive the economy of this country, in particular after the economic troubles around the COVID-19 pandemic. We expect Parliament to be recalled probably next Wednesday, the 30th. That will be the moment where MPs will be expected to approve this deal. Now, there may be some Conservative backbenchers, especially in the ERG, the European Research Group, those Eurosceptics, who may not back this deal, but we understand Boris Johnson has been making phone calls, just trying to keep them up to date. The ERG Star Chamber is set to meet in the next couple of days. That is a group of legal experts, Eurosceptic legal experts, to go through the detail of this deal and work out if it fits their understanding of what Brexit is. In terms of Labour, Keir Starmer, the Labour leader, is expected to give some form of press conference later this afternoon or perhaps into the early evening. Everything he has said suggests that he will encourage his own Labour MPs to back this deal. It's possible they could abstain, but I think arguing over the past few weeks that a trade deal is better than no deal, it now seems more likely that he will back this deal in Parliament. So it seems likely, therefore, Sophie, that this deal will be approved by the UK's Parliament next Wednesday. All eyes now on Downing Street, where in the next 5-10 minutes or so we should hear this press conference from Boris Johnson, giving perhaps the speech of his life.
How long any switch will take from where we are now to where they want to end up, how many years they might phase that in on both sides. So we know that those are the issues that we understand that those are the issues that were contentious. We don't yet know quite what the solutions that they've come up with for that, so hopefully we'll find out pretty soon. Yes,
can. Hello.
Robert, can you hear us now?
Yeah, I could always hear you.
Okay, yeah, and we can hear you fine now.
Oh,
Thank you.
Bye.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's 4.5 years since the British people voted to take back control of their money, their borders, their laws, and their waters, and to leave the European Union. And earlier this year, we fulfilled that promise in that we left on January the 31st with that oven-ready deal. Since that time, we've been getting on with our agenda, enacting the points-based immigration system that you voted for and that will come into force on January the 1st, doing free trade deals with 58 countries around the world, and preparing the new relationship with the EU. And there have been plenty of people who have told us that the challenges of the COVID pandemic have made this work impossible and that we should extend the transition period and incur yet more delay. And I rejected that approach precisely because beating COVID is our #1 national priority, and I wanted to end any extra uncertainty and to give this country the best possible chance of bouncing back strongly next year. And so I'm very pleased to tell you this afternoon that we have completed the biggest trade deal yet, worth £660 billion a year, a comprehensive Canada-style free trade deal between the UK and the EU, a deal that will protect jobs across this country, a deal that will allow goods, UK goods and components to be sold without tariffs and without quotas in the EU market, a deal which will, if anything, allow our companies and our exporters to do even more business with our European friends, and yet which achieves something that the people of this country instinctively knew was doable, but which they were told was impossible. We've taken back control of our laws and our destiny. We've taken back control of every jot and tittle of our regulation in a way that is complete and unfettered. From January the 1st, we are outside the customs union and outside the single market. British laws will be made solely by the British Parliament, interpreted by UK judges sitting in UK courts, and the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice will come to an end. We will be able to set our own standards, to innovate in the way that we want, to originate new frameworks for the sectors in which this country leads the world, from biosciences to financial services, artificial intelligence, and beyond. We'll be able to decide how and where we're going to stimulate new jobs and new hope with free ports, new green industrial zones. We'll be able to cherish our landscape and our environment in the way we choose, backing our farmers, backing British food and agricultural production. And for the first time since 1973, we will be an independent coastal state with full control of our waters, with the UK's share of fish in our waters rising substantially from roughly half today to closer to 2/3 in 5.5 years' time, after which there is no theoretical limit beyond those placed by science or conservation on the quantity of our own fish that we can fish in our waters. And to get ready for that moment, those fishing communities will be helped with a big £100 million programme to modernise their fleets and the fish processing industry. And I want to stress that although, of course, the arguments with our European friends and partners were sometimes fierce, this is, I believe, a good deal for the whole of Europe and for our friends and partners as well. Because it will not be a bad thing, in my view, for the EU to have a prosperous and dynamic and contented UK on your doorstep. And it will be a good thing. It will drive jobs and prosperity across the whole continent. And I don't think it'd be a bad thing if we in the UK do things differently or take a different approach to legislation. Because in so many ways, our basic goals are the same. And in the context of this giant free trade zone that we're jointly creating, the stimulus of regulatory competition will, I think, benefit us both. And if one side believes it's somehow being unfairly undercut by the other, then subject to independent third-party arbitration and provided the measures are proportionate, we can, either of us, decide as sovereign equals to protect our consumers or businesses. But this treaty explicitly envisages that such action should only happen infrequently. And the concepts of uniformity and harmonization are banished in favor of mutual respect and mutual recognition and free trade. And for squaring that circle, for finding the philosopher's stone that's enabled us to do this, I want to thank President von der Leyen, Ursula von der Leyen of the European Commission, our brilliant negotiators led by Lord Frost and Michel Barnier on the EU side, as Stephanie Risso, as well as Oliver Lewis, Tim Barrow, Lindsay Appleby, many others. Their work will be available for scrutiny, followed by a parliamentary vote, I hope, on December the 30th. This agreement, this deal, above all, means certainty. It means certainty for the aviation industry and the hauliers who have suffered so much in the COVID pandemic. It means certainty for the police, the border forces, the security services, all those we rely on across Europe to keep us all safe. It means certainty for our scientists who will be able to work together and continue to work together on great collective projects, because although we want in the UK to be a science superpower, we also want to be a collaborative science superpower. And above all, it means certainty for business, from financial services to our world-leading manufacturers, our car industry, certainty for all those who are working in high-skilled jobs and in firms and factories across the whole country. Because there will be no palisade of tariffs on January the 1st, and there'll be no non-tariff barriers to trade. Instead, there will be a giant free trade zone of which we will at once be a member and at the same time be able to do our own free trade deals as one UK, whole and entire England, Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales together. And I should stress, this deal was done by a huge negotiating team from every part of the UK, and it will benefit every part of our United Kingdom, helping to unite and level up across the country. And so I say again, directly to our EU friends and partners, I think this deal means a new stability and a new certainty in what has sometimes been a fractious and difficult relationship. We will be your friend, your ally, your supporter, and indeed, never let it be forgotten, your number one market. Because although we have left the EU, this country will remain culturally, emotionally, historically, strategically, geologically attached to Europe. Not least, of course, through the 4 million EU nationals who have requested to settle in the UK over the last 4 years and who make an enormous contribution to our country and to our lives. And I say to all of you at home at the end of this toughest of years that our focus in the weeks ahead is, of course, on defeating the pandemic and on beating coronavirus and rebuilding our economy and delivering jobs across the country. And I'm utterly confident that we can and will do it. By today, we've vaccinated almost 800,000 people. And we've also today resolved a question that has bedeviled our politics for decades. And it is up to us all together as a newly and truly independent nation to realize the immensity of this moment and to make the most of it. Happy Christmas to you all. That's the good news from Brussels. Now for the sprouts. Actually, it's now for the media. Let's go to the media, who I think we've got Laura Koonsberg. Over to you, Laura.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. We're yet to see the text of this deal, which we understand runs to some 2,000 pages. You've presumably had the benefit of poring over every word, or maybe perhaps not every single word. But can you tell the public honestly, where did the UK give the most ground? And where did the EU compromise the most, do you think?
Thanks, Laura. Well, actually, it's only about 500 pages, and I think it would, and it's readily intelligible. I think it would be fair to say that we wanted to make sure, for instance, that we got access to, got complete control of our fisheries from the get-go, and that's just to say we had annual negotiations on fisheries within the shortest possible delay. The EU began with, I think, wanting a transition period of 14 years. We wanted 3 years. We've ended up at 5 years. I think that was a reasonable transition period, and I can assure great fish fanatics in this country, we will, as a result of this deal, be able to catch and eat quite prodigious quantities of extra fish. So that's why we're going to have to make these investments in the fishing sector. Thanks very much, Laura. Let's go to Robert Peston of ITV. Sorry, Robert, you need to unmute. You need to unmute, Robert.
Yeah. Prime Minister, you said all along you wanted a Canada-style deal, but what you've agreed means that we in the UK have to follow EU rules on subsidies, on tax, on workers' rights, on the environment, or potentially incur the imposition of tariffs. That's right, isn't it? I mean, we just heard Ursula von der Leyen say that she got her level playing field, which you've explicitly rejected all the way through. You also just said there would be no non-tariff barriers. Again, that's not right. From January the 1st, as a result of leaving the customs union, and Michael Gove has been warning about this week in, week out for months, there is a ton of new bureaucracy on British businesses, lots of new non-tariff barriers. This is not to say the deal is a bad deal, but you're not selling it correctly, are you? You're mis-selling it.
No. Well, I respectfully disagree with you, because there is indeed a clause in the deal which is nothing like as damaging as it was, and is, in my view, neutralised, which says that if either country feel that the other one is in some way undercutting them or dumping in some way, then subject to arbitration, and provided the measure is proportionate, and that, I mean, independent arbitration, not arbitration by the European Court of Justice, but subject to an independent panel, they can, if they really choose, put on tariffs to protect their consumers and their businesses. And to give you an example of the kind of thing where that might occur, for instance, in the UK, we want to go further on animal welfare standards. And it might be that we do things, for instance, on how you rear pigs, banning sow crates and so on, that would incur extra costs for our pig farmers. And it might be that bacon coming from elsewhere from the EU was at risk of, therefore, of undercutting us. We might, under those circumstances, consider imposing tariffs. I think it's highly unlikely, but we might consider it. It would have to be subject to arbitration. It would have to be proportionate according to the arbitrator, and under no circumstances would we be in any way constrained, legally or otherwise, by anything that the EU did or chose to do themselves, nor, furthermore, would there be any role for the European Court of Justice. And for people at home who have zoned out while I've been talking about this, let me tell you, this is a very, very long day's march from where we were a few years ago. You will remember, Robert, when we were talking about basically having a common rule book with the EU and having dynamic alignment with EU laws, so that the UK was forced to keep step. And that has gone from this treaty insofar as the EU wanted it, and there is no role for the European Court of Justice, whatever. So I think it's a great treaty. And as for your point about non-tariff barriers, yes, I think it's important to stress. What I'm talking about is barriers on the grounds of, your plugs won't work in our country, therefore they're banned or whatever. That kind of technical barriers to trade, and there's a lot in this treaty to try to reduce all that kind of thing, make sure that doesn't happen. That's a good thing. That's a good thing for businesses and consumers, and in that sense, it's a great free trade deal. But I must stress to people getting ready for January the 1st that there will be change. So people will need get on the gov.uk website. Exporters will need their AORI forms and everything else. People should be aware of the change that is coming. But there's also an opportunity, because for British exporters now, the whole world it will be treated the same for export purposes. And I think that will actually galvanise our exporters to think much more positively and dynamically about the opportunities that they have. So I must respectfully disagree with both the points that you made. This is a jumbo Canada-style free trade deal of exactly the kind that I think this country needs. And as I say, I believe it resolves a long-standing and very, very difficult problem. People said you couldn't be part of a free trade zone with the EU without being obliged to follow EU laws. If you remember, people, I think there was I think we were told we couldn't have our cake and eat it, and that kind of thing. I'm not going to claim that this is a cakeist treaty, Robert, but it's because that. But it is. I believe. What the country needs at this time, and the right way forward for the UK. Let's go to Sam Coates of Sky.
Prime Minister, you say this is an unprecedented deal that observes all your red lines and promises to the country. Can people trust that life will be better as a result of this deal and that there won't be any disruption even in the short term? And can you guarantee the government won't end up reopening elements of the new relationship in the years to come?
Well, Sam, I mean, really good questions. I mean, short term, yes, as I said just now, there are things we have to get right, processes that maybe people have to do that they need to be aware of, and I'm going to, that point really is worth reinforcing. I do believe that the freedoms that this treaty wins us, basically a new independence from the EU, are worth having. But, and so free ports, free trade deals, being able to do, as I say, to look after your livestock differently, improving your landscape in a different way, doing all sorts of things differently, regulating financial services differently, chemicals, all sorts of things where we may want to do things differently and better. But I would just say to people watching this, and I'm sorry for disturbing Cars 3, by the way, to say to people watching this, I would say it's one thing to get freedom. Winning freedom is a fantastic thing, and that this is an important element of what we've done. But it's how we use it, how we make the most of it. That's what's going to matter in the months and years to come. And I've no doubt that we can do fantastic things with this treaty if we with this new relationship, which I think will be stable and prosperous for both sides. Let's go to Tom Newton-Dunn of Times Radio.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister, and thank you. A couple of quick questions, if you don't mind. Every deal means both sides have to compromise. Do you accept that you have compromised throughout the last 11 months, particularly perhaps the last 11 days, from perhaps your earlier slightly absolutist positions? Perhaps that was a negotiating ploy, but compromise is not a dirty word. Do you agree with that? And secondly, can you address services? Because I haven't heard you say much about that. 80%, of course, of the UK economy. You say some British companies would do more trade with the EU because of this deal. Will the British service sector, especially the financial services sector, will they be able to do more trade or less trade?
Well, there's a first of all, on the compromise point, no, compromise isn't a dirty word, and unquestionably there are things that we've done to help our friends and partners to move things forward. I mentioned, I think, to Laura, where we got to on fish. We started out wanting a very short transition period of 3 years. They wanted a much longer one of 14 years. We've compromised on that at 5.5. And on the vital services sector, yes, of course, they feature in this deal quite rightly. There's some good language about equivalence for financial services, perhaps not as much as we would have liked, but it is nonetheless going to enable our dynamic City of London to get on and prosper as never before. There's some good stuff about barristers, solicitors, lawyers being able to practice around the European Union. We will be able to continue to have massive and growing economic interpenetration without the need for what I've always talked about, this lunar pull of EU law. As I say, this is something that I think can benefit people on both sides of the channel. It'll be a healthy, dynamic, productive, happy, stable relationship. That's what we're aiming for. Let's go to George Parker of the FT.
Thank you, Prime Minister. You mentioned the change that will happen at the border in any event on January the 1st. I just wondered if there was anything in this deal where the two sides have agreed to introduce some sort of flexibility at the border to make sure we don't have chaos in Dover and Calais on January the 1st. And a second, more general point, you and I used to be reporters in Brussels, and we've covered the sort of psychodrama of British EU relations for a number of decades. Nigel Farage said today that the war is over. I just wondered if you saw it in those terms.
No, I think first of all on the border and measures to there are all sorts of things in the treaty that what you will recognise about trusted trader schemes and special measures on sanitary and phytosanitary recognition and steps to make sure that things flow as smoothly as we possibly can. Though again, I stress that there will be things that people have to do. Look, I mean, the EU was and is an extraordinary concept, and it was born out of the agony of the Second World War, founded by idealistic people in France and Germany and Italy, who never wanted those countries to go to war with each other again, and other countries, Belgium, Holland, and others. And in many ways, it was and is a very noble enterprise. So I don't recognise the kind of language that you talk of. I think that the UK's own relationship with it was always difficult. We always found some of the language about ever closer union, the idea of this political union, this very dense idea of this ideology of endless integration, we found quite hard, George. And I think as a fellow Brussels reporter, you'll remember that there was quite a lot of friction involved. I think that what we've got here is the basis of a new long-term friendship and partnership that basically stabilizes that relationship. And insofar as the UK needs to be, and always must be, a great European power, always must be a great European power, we're there outside the main body of the EU, but we're there as a friend and as a supporter, as a flying buttress, if you like, to make sure, as we have done so many times in the last couple of hundred years, that we're able to lend our voice when it's needed and to be of value to our European friends and partners in a strategic way. And that's what the UK will obviously continue to do. But I think the very dense programme of integration wasn't right for the UK, and that's why it was right to take back control in the way that we have. And I think that this deal expresses what the people of the country voted for in 2016, and I think there was a wisdom in what they decided, and I think that we'll be able to go forward on this basis. Let's go to Gordon Rayner of The Telegraph.
Thank you, Prime Minister, and Merry Christmas for tomorrow. Could I just ask, probably half the people watching this right now would have voted Remain in the referendum in 2016. Do you have a particular message for them? People today are tweeting that this is a bad deal, that it's not what they wanted. They would rather have stayed in. What's your message to them? And just secondly, can I also ask you, we've had more figures today on COVID. You mentioned COVID earlier. Can you rule out another national lockdown after Christmas?
Well, Gordon, thanks. I think my message to everybody on both sides of the divide is of that argument in 2016 is I really think it's now a long time behind us. And I think most people that I talk to, whichever way they were inclined to vote back then, just want it settled and want us to move on. And I think this gives us the platform, the foundation for a really prosperous new relationship. And I would be very excited now by this deal. You know, this European question has been going on for decades, exactly what relationship we should have. This is a great new free trade deal, a trading relationship and partnership that I think will bring prosperity to both sides of the channel. And on coronavirus and the struggle there, obviously we face a very considerable new pressures, particularly from the new variant and the speed with which that's been spreading. We believe that we're going to have to get through this tough period now with, as I said many times, very tough restrictions, with tough tiering, and you'll have seen what's been announced over the last day or so about that. And much as I regret that, I do think it is necessary for us to grip this virus now, to stop it running out of control in January, because we need to buy ourselves time to get the vaccine into as many arms of the elderly and vulnerable as we can. And that is the real way in which we will defeat the virus. So it's tough tiering, community testing, and rolling out the vaccine, and we're going to continue with that approach. And I know that it's been very, very tough over the last few weeks, and I must tell people it will continue to be difficult, not least basically because of the speed with which the new variant is spreading. But the vaccine is going into people's arms, and there really is now, I think, hope, the certainty that we will have it defeated, as I say, by the spring. Or that's certainly what the scientists still believe, and they're still confident of that. So thanks very much, Gordon. Let's go to Harry Cole of The Sun.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Can you give us some more details about the new security arrangements with the EU? Are we going to be as safe next week under your new security partnership as we are today, given that Brussels are saying that they're going to lock us out of live EU databases? And given you've locked us all up, how will you recommend we celebrate leaving the EU next week?
Well, Harry, look, I leave your manner of celebration entirely to you and to individual taste. I wouldn't want. I mean, I think the government done quite enough bossing people around, recommending this or that over the last 10 months or so. But on security and police cooperation, I'm absolutely confident this is a deal that protects our police cooperation, protects our ability to catch criminals and to share intelligence across the European continent in the way that we have done for many years. So I don't think people should have fears on that score, or indeed on any score. Let's go to Heather Stewart of The Guardian.
Hello, Prime Minister. Michel Barnier said today that we've decided to leave the Erasmus exchange scheme, which sent thousands of students to EU countries every year. I wonder what you'd say to young people who feel as though opportunities to discover the continent on our doorstep by living there or studying there or working there are being taken away from them. And secondly, just do you have a message for Keir Starmer, who will have to decide in the coming hours and days how to whip Labour MPs, whether they should support your deal?
Right, Heather. Well, look, on Erasmus, it was a tough decision. The issue really was that, as you know, the UK is a massive net contributor to the continent's higher education economy, because over the last decades we've had so many EU nationals, which it's been a wonderful thing. But our arrangements basically mean that financially the UK exchequer more or less loses out on the deal. Erasmus was also extremely expensive. So what we're doing is producing a UK scheme for students to go around the world, and it'll be called the Turing scheme, and it will so students will have the opportunity to named after Alan Turing. So the students will have the opportunity not just to go to European universities, but to go to the best universities in the world, because we want our young people to experience the immense intellectual stimulation of Europe, but also of the whole world. And as for, I think you asked about which way should the opposition vote on this. Well, it's perfectly obvious, Heather. The opposition should vote for this excellent deal, and I would strongly encourage everybody to do the same. Thank you very much, everybody. Happy Christmas to you all. Thank you.